Welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the prelim fights for UFC 245, Usman versus Covington. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the card and our first prelim. So in our first fight, we have in the middleweight division, Soriano versus Oscar Piechota. So when I first was looking at this fight, I was leaning to Oscar Piechota just based off having more experience and being a more technical fighter, at least on the feet. But then I started looking more into him and looking at his stats and looking at his fights. And his takedown defense is pretty poor. Yes, he's more technical on the feet by a slim margin, or maybe even a slightly significant margin, if you would say. But your takedown defense is less than 45%. I mean, less than 50%. That's kind of questionable when you're going against a wrestler. And I think Soriano's average right now, when I say like he outstrikes Piechota. Matter of fact, Piechota's striking output and accuracy is higher than Soriano's, but just judging based off his contender series fight and where he's at recently in both their recent performances, Soriano does a lot more volume. He has worked at a lot higher rate, but I guess his rate is kind of not as much because he's mixing in takedowns with his striking as well, but his work rate is very high, and I feel like he works high, like he fights at a much higher pace than Piechota does. And having that wrestling background with Piechota giving up takedowns to really not even wrestlers at all, and he hasn't even really fought a wrestler yet, and his takedown defense is already below 50%. So, and now he's going against a wrestler, an actual wrestler. I was going to see really working out for Piechota. I feel like Soriano, even though he's not as technical on the feet, he can outwork Piechota on the feet, and then mixing in the takedowns and that threat can give Piechota to respect that, and which will allow him to have success in both his striking and his grappling. And like I said, with his takedown defense already being below 50%. And he's going against a wrestler, I just don't see it working out that well for Piechota. I see Soriano outworking him, getting takedowns, and just beat him on the decision, just outworking him on the feet, and mixing the takedowns, controlling him, and maybe even put on a semi-dominant performance. I think since this is a step up in competition, it's going to be a hard fight for Soriano. But with, like I said, the work rate and the takedowns, I think he should edge it on the scorecard. So in this fight, I got Soriano via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the women's flyweight division. Jessica Eye versus Viviane Araujo. So again, this fight's pretty even, to be honest. They both can grapple, they both can strike. Matter of fact, I'm not going to say all that. I'm going to say try to make it seem like it's so even. But I feel like Viviane, where Jessica Eye had so much success at 135, or not so much success, because she did go on like a 4-fight losing streak, but which she was strong at the 135, that she was her speed. Let me get to the point. Her speed was where she thrived off. She thrived off her speed. And this weight class at flyweight, she thrived off maybe not being the fastest fighter at this flyweight, but being a larger fighter, having that experience, and then being able to wrestle, mixing things, because she was no longer the smaller fighter, but maybe a bigger fighter at 125, or is a bigger fighter at 125. But yeah, so what I'm saying, Jessica relies heavily on speed, or did at one point, and still kind of does. Now going against Viviane Araujo, who came up from a lower weight class. Viviane Araujo was faster. I think she's more technical on the feet. I think Jessica has a little bit more experience with her wrestling and grappling at a higher level than Araujo, at least in MMA terms. But I feel like it's kind of like one of these fights that's like a swing fight. I think it's gonna lean to Viviane Araujo just based off momentum. She has all the all the hype behind her right now. She's riding that steam, whereas Jessica Eye is coming off a loss, like a knockout loss. And I feel like I said, Araujo's faster, strikes are sharper. And I think her grappling solid enough to really shut down Jessica Eye's wrestling. I'm not saying she's going to shut it down completely, but I'm thinking she's going to be able to shut it down enough to really neutralize it, keep the fight on feet, and being a sharper, faster, technical striker. I think she could really just, like I said, just outwork and beat Jessica Eye in this fight. Like, land the more significant strikes. I will outvalue her in the strikes and land the more significant strikes. I still see this has been a very competitive fight. A lot of clinching, a lot of grappling, a lot of, just trying to battle for positions. But I feel like Viviane Araujo's more speed and her being a more technical striker is going to allow her to edge the fight. And I still think it's competitive, but I think it's a clear-cut decision for Viviane Araujo. So in this fight, I got Viviane Araujo via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the flyweight division, Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara-France. So at first I was going to lean to Brandon Moreno in this one. Then I started looking more into it, and I just kind of stuck with Kai Kara-France. At first I was like, Kai Kara-France coming off maybe not his last fight, but I remember that Raleigh on Paiva fight where he just looked terrible, and I think Paiva really won that fight, but they gave it to Kai Kara-France. Then Moreno's coming off the fight that he really should have went his way with, like Askarov or whatever. But they just, I guess for whatever reason, they didn't give him the victory. But I think he really beat Askarov. So kind of judging off some of their recent performances. But then it's looking like, instead of just looking at recent performances and look how they actually match up, we'll look at Brandon Moreno's track record. most of the people that really beat him have been people that have been more technical in the striking aspect of him. Akhmedov was a solid fighter, solid sambo practitioner, but he was more so a wrestler, grappler type of fighter, not really a solid striker. And he was kind of sloppy on the feet, and that allowed Brandon Moreno in the fight. Kai France definitely not gonna out grapple Moreno, but where we seen Moreno lose a lot of times, like say like a fight with Sergio Pettis. I know there's other fights I can use it for better references, but I don't know the names at the moment. It's not on the top of my head, but definitely in the Sergio Pettis fight, you see Moreno in that fight and other fights struggle with more technical strikers than him. Fighters that, can avoid going to the ground with him and just pick him apart on the feet, because Brandon Moreno doesn't have the most, textbook striking. Is kind of awkward, kind of unorthodox, so cleaner strikers can definitely shut him down. And what Kai France brings is he brings solid takedown offense, and he brings clean, crisp, world-class striking. Issues that Moreno has not yet addressed in his his UFC career. And I feel like Kai France can mostly neutralize his takedowns and just be the cleaner, sharper striker and just outpoint Moreno. I don't think he's gonna be so clean and so sharp and so much better than that. He's gonna be able to, to stay on his feet and just put Moreno away. But I think he'll be clean enough to really just outpoint and outstrike Moreno just by being a more technical striker and being able to neutralize largely neutralize the takedown and grappling aspects of this fight. So in this fight, I got Kai France via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the featherweight division, Chase Hooper versus Daniel Teymur. So I don't know who's getting a give-me fight in this one, or if it is a give-me fight for other guys. You got this young guy like 20. He came off the Contender Series, but they didn't give him immediate fight or immediate contract. And then he fought one more fight, I believe, and it was a draw. Now he's getting the contract. And you got Daniel Teymur, who was pretty much losing every single fight he had in the UFC. And then they gave him a new guy, and then he managed to, show some new wrinkles, show that he can fight a little bit technical and not just fight like a barroom brawler. And then he managed to pull off the victory. But it's like, neither of these guys are necessarily, don't seem like they're UFC caliber just yet, especially Teymur. Teymur look like he could be, you give him any decent fighter and he's going to lose, or any fighter that should be in the UFC, he's going to lose to them. But, yeah, it's like, who's this fight being picked for? But I feel like in this fight, Teymur still really hasn't shown to really be a true, really solid grappler. And though Chase Hooper is a young, baby-faced fighter, he has shown some solid grappling. Like I said, I'm going to lean to Hooper's grappling. I feel like Teymur really still hasn't addressed that grappling aspect and has been thoroughly dominated in the grappling aspects and pretty much most of his losses in the UFC. And I feel like that's still an area he needs to show it. And he can't show it very well showed in this fight. Well, even if he does beat Hooper, I'm not going to really be impressed by him because he's like a baby-faced 20-year-old who just came off a draw in his fight against an unimpressive fighter in his last fight. But like I said, Daniel Teymur hasn't shown me nothing. So really hasn't really shown me too much. So I'm going to lean this Hooper's grappling to be able to take this, mix it in the grappling, kind of follow the blueprint, and maybe not have the cleanest performance, but be able to at least kind of stick somewhat close to that blueprint and be able to beat Daniel Teymur to the decision by like taking him down, mixing the takedowns, clinching, grappling, and really trying to hold this fight on the ground as long as he can and not really allow Teymur to get up to his feet and strike how he wants to strike. So in this fight, I got Chase Hooper via decision. Now on to our next fight we have in the welterweight division, Matt Brown versus Ben Saunders. So look at this fight, two veterans. How I see this fight, it's really not that huge of a gap on the striking aspect, but I will say Matt Brown is still the better striker between the two, more power, more finishes, better track record there. In a lot of areas, Ben Saunders is strong in, Matt Brown is stronger there. Like Ben Saunders has a good clinch, good elbows, but Matt Brown's better in the clinch, has better elbows in the clinch. Pretty much everyone on striking, he's better there. The only area I say on striking that Saunders is better at is maybe taking shots to the body. That's about it. That's all he's better at than Matt Brown in the striking aspect. Where Ben Saunders really has the edge is in the grappling, but I think Matt Brown's takedown defense is solid enough to defend Ben Saunders' takedowns, because Ben Saunders doesn't have amazing takedown offense, and Matt Brown necessarily doesn't have the amazing takedown defense, but his takedown defense is better than Ben Saunders' takedown offense. Now I feel like it could be like with area, like I said, areas where Ben Saunders is strong in the striking, and Matt Brown is even stronger, and I feel like Matt Brown could just not even just the striking aspect and the physical aspect. I think Matt Brown is just strong on the feet, strong on strike. So if he gets no clinch, he can muscle and bully Ben Saunders around, hit him with some elbows, knee him in the body. Just really fight a classic vintage Matt Brown style. I still see this being a fun fight, but I feel like Ben Saunders is going to wilt under Matt Brown's pace and his power and his sharp strikes. And I feel like he puts him away in the second round. So in this fight, I got Matt Brown via second round TKO. Now to our next fight we have in the middleweight division, Heinisch versus Omari Akhmedov. So look at this fight right here. You got Omari Akhmedov. Really doesn't have the best striking. He has a solid chin, swings some big shots. In the last fight, he showed you how effective he could be with his grappling. So definitely an effective grappler. But I feel like Heinisch is the cleaner striker between the two, has the better cardio between the two. And then I think the real X factor in this fight right here is Ian Heinisch's scramble ability. And I think before he lost to Derek Brunson, in his prior fights, he showed how good he's at scrambling. Despite these opponents having these dominant control, he was able to always scramble, get back to his feet, wear them out, and really just win the war of, cardio battle, or win the gritty battle. And I feel like in the battle of Omari Akhmedov, we've seen Omari Akhmedov have, these mental lapses in fight. We've seen him fatigued in fights. And we really haven't seen that from Ian Heinisch. He did lose to Derek Brunson, but it was not like he was just so fatigued or so this, so that. Whereas Akhmedov, we've seen him have mental lapses and get caught. We've seen him get slowed down in fights and lose decisions. Whereas Ian Heinisch just really has his cardio and his mind and his will has not been in question. So I feel like his scramble ability, even if Akhmedov tries to go for a takedown, grappling aspect, I have confidence Heinisch can get back to his feet. I feel like on the feet, he has a lot more tools and he can mix a lot better than Akhmedov, whereas Akhmedov's mostly going to swing big hooks, maybe do some leg kicks and swing big sloppy hooks. I feel like Ian Heinisch, cleaner striker, should be able to get to his feet and just really put a high pace on Akhmedov, whether it's defensively or offensively, just overall is keeping that fight at a high pace, and which will cause Akhmedov to slow down, and Heinisch will get stronger as the fight goes on, and fight at, the vintage, not even vintage, but like a typical Heinisch type performance, kind of maybe losing or having a close fight to start, but as fight goes on, it's only going to get better and better for him. And I think he just pulls out another decision. So in this fight, I got Ian Heinisch via decision. Now to our next fight. We have in our co-prelim headliner in the women's bantamweight division, Ketlen Vieira versus Irene Aldana. So looking at this fight right here, Aldana has some solid boxing, probably some of the best boxing in the women's divisions. But she still really hasn't addressed the grappling aspect. When she fights a solid grappler who's not maybe just a grappler, a well-rounded grappler, not like one of those grapplers don't have no real striking. But when she fights a grappler that has some decent enough, respectable enough striking, she really gets dominated out there. And I feel like Ketlen Vieira has the size to really impose her will on Aldana in the grappling. Her striking, she's no slouch in the grappling either. So I feel like Aldana, if she can keep this fight on the feet and, keep her distance and pick apart Vieira, she has a shot. But I feel like Vieira has more than enough skill on the feet to gain Aldana's respect. And then when she starts to get in a hold over her or get on a clinch on her, get some takedowns on her, I feel like she can really dominate Aldana in this fight. Especially if if she gets her down, I think it could be a quick fight and she could take her down, smash her, get her to give up a limb or a neck and tap her out. But I feel like it's going to be a filling out process kind of early. Now I think Vieira gets a takedown late in that first round. Then I think in the second round, she follows up with that same success, gets a takedown earlier in that second round, and just it really starts to dominate Aldana on the ground. Like I said, and gets her to give up a neck or a limb, and I think she taps out in that second round. So in this fight, I got Ketlen Vieira via second round submission. Now to our prelim headliner we have in the welterweight division, Jeff Neal versus Mike Perry. So looking at this fight right here, this is a very interesting fight right here. I was going to lean to Jeff Neal at first in this fight, but looking at his style, he kind of has I thought he was like a newer age fighter, but looking at his style, he has to kind of have a throwback, like a 2000, not 2010, but like a 2000, year 2000 to year 2009 type of style. He kind of square. It's good for defending leg kicks and maybe dodging hooks and stuff, but straight punch is not the best style for it, because he's real square. He's effective and has powerful and in position to attack, but not in the best position to defend. Like we see a lot of newer age fighters, they kind of have a wider stance. They're not as square. They're trying to mix in a lot of more boxing. He kind of had one of style with just like one of those old school, straight up and down kickboxing wrestler or grappler MMA styles, and I feel like that leaves him open to a lot of boxing techniques, whether it be like good hooks around the guard or good straight shots or good jabs to the body or hooks to the body, anything to the body, because his body's straight there. And I feel like Mike Perry, he's not like the most high-level boxer. I feel like he has some pretty good box fundamentals. I feel like he can exploit Jeff Neal's squareness in this fight. And then Jeff Neal was caught by Nico Price, I think, a couple times in their fight. Yes, he did eventually finish him off, but it wasn't like he had a clean performance against Nico Price. And Mike Perry is coming off a fight where he came up short against Vicente Luque, who kind of has a similar style to Jeff Neal, or at least a similar weakness and strengths to what Luque brings. Like I said, they're both kind of better offensive than defensive. They both kind of have that style where they're a little bit square and don't really move their head as much. And I feel like Mike Perry pretty much put a good performance against Vicente Luque. It might have even been able to steal it on the cards, but it just didn't go his way. But all that being said, I feel like Mike Perry has a style that can definitely exploit some of Neal's weaknesses. Like I said, defensively, body shots, coming over the top. And Mike Perry definitely has power. If he can, if you're gonna allow him to touch you, he can touch you. He can put your lights out. I see this as a very competitive fight, probably another fight of the night type performance. A lot of injuries going back and forth between the two. But I feel like Mike Perry's going to be able to attack Neal to the body often and then mix up top and catch him. I think it's going to be a competitive fight, but I feel like Mike Perry's going to eventually be able to catch him around that guard after he attacks the body and then catch him around that guard. I think it happens like late in that third. I mean, like not late, but like in the mid portion of that third round. So in this fight, I got Mike Perry via third round TKO. And that concludes my fight predictions for the prelims of UFC 245, Usman versus Covington. And as always, thanks for watching.